Hi, my name's Tanisha. Hi to anyone who's watching this video. This is my second video, so it's following on from the first video that I did, which was all about being a witch and how I came to that understanding and what type of witch I was and what it meant to be a witch. So for this video, I'm just going to elaborate a little bit further on that. But then the second topic that I'm going to talk about is... in the first video, I talked about my belief system and believing in a god and a goddess and how I believed in having a relationship with them rather than worshipping them, and that they came to me. So this video is going to sort of talk about how they came to me as well and how I started working with them. But first of all, the first topic is for me, like, more about being a witch and sort of what that means to me. So I really want to get across that in past lives, women were suppressed. I think we all know that in the Dark Ages, women didn't have as many rights as they do now, and they were treated more like property. And it just wasn't really probably a great time to be a woman. Like, you wouldn't have felt great as a woman. And I feel really connected to that past life. So I believe that I have been in those past life where I was very suppressed as a woman, not as a woman. Now, powerful women were very feared. Women that weren't ashamed to be women, they weren't ashamed of their sexuality as a woman. They weren't ashamed of their power. Like, so there was a lot of wise women and healers, medicinal healers and stuff like that. Those women, they were, more vilified than just normal women. And, they were called witches. So to me, the reason that I call myself a witch, to me, it's just another name, another identity for a spiritual path that someone's on. So a witch really isn't that much different to someone, that calls themselves a spiritualist. It's just another name for it. And the reason that I chose to go with that name is because of the fact that I want to take back power over that word. For all those women in the Dark Ages who fought for us women, for powerful women, to be able to be themselves and not be vilified for it. It's kind of like respect to them. So respect to our ancestors in taking back power over that word and saying, hey, I'm not ashamed to be a powerful woman. So that's more about what it means to me. And that's probably the strongest reason that I did decide to call myself a witch. It's also about, it's a word that, even though it's more accepted today, I did talk about in my first video that it's still looked at a little bit weirdly. So it's about being able to be yourself and not care about what people think of that as well. So now the second topic was about the god and the goddess that I work with. So in order to tell you how I met them, I actually met them through dreams. Kind of like nightmare dreams, to be honest. So first I'll talk about how I met the god. So as a little girl, I have to sort of go back to when I was a little girl and the sorts of things that I experienced. As a little girl, I used to see things that other people couldn't see. So I did have psychic abilities. So I could not only sense energy that other people couldn't sense, so spirits and things like that, could hear them, could see them, could feel them, and quite oftentimes I'm not saying it was all negative, but a lot of them weren't sort of good entities. A lot of them were quite negative entities. And it was a really, really scary thing for me as a little girl. And, I had other things going on as well. And, it just put me in like a very, like a sense of fear. Like I feared the dark. I was just in fear all the time. And so this one time when this negative entity appeared to me, and I'm going to describe how it appeared to me, what it did, and I do apologize if it freaks you out because it is pretty scary. But basically, I had a dream that I was asleep, and my mum was asleep in the bed next to me. But it's kind of like lucid dreaming because I knew that I was dreaming because I was like, well, when I went to sleep, my mum wasn't next to me. So, this isn't real life. Like, this is just a dream. And then I looked over to my door because everything was the same in the room except for my mum being there as it had been before. And I saw this negative entity in the doorway. And the way that I can describe it is it looked scaly. It had claws. It had like long, scraggly, oily, sort of damp black hair that was sort of covering its face. And I could see that its face was scaly as well. But it was quite short and it was kind of hunchbacked. Now, I think it may have appeared to me that way because when I was little, and so this is probably about me at 11 years old, and I watched The Ring, that girl, for any of you who've seen The Ring, absolutely terrified me. So I think it appeared to me in, a very terrifying form, because negative entities, well, that their goal is to scare you. And they're very drawn to children, because children are very open to the spiritual realm, because we haven't yet been told that, you're being silly, you're making it up, that doesn't exist. So we're kind of just open to everything. But anyway, so this entity appeared to me in the doorway and I knew it was coming for me, and it started sort of walking slowly over to the end of the bed where my feet were. And I just got this feeling, and I knew this thing was going to bite me. And I just remember being frozen in terror at that moment when I knew this thing was going to bite me. And although I knew I was in a dream, I also knew it was real. Which is really difficult to describe, but it's like, it's a dream where you feel things. So it's not just like a normal dream. So anyway, it came to the end of the bed and it opened its mouth, and its mouth, again, I think so that, I would be very fearful, kind of looked like a shark's mouth. Like, it opened up really wide and had all these like needle sharp teeth, and it did bite me. It latched on to my feet, and I didn't feel physical pain. So this is kind of how I knew I was kind of like in a, your dreaming is kind of like a spiritual realm. But I knew in that instant, it felt like the energy was being drained out of me. And I knew it wasn't a good thing. Like, it was draining my spirit out of me. Basically, my soul out of me is what it felt like. And what's weird is the next thing that happened, I was just in a moment of fear. So I wasn't thinking of God. I wasn't thinking of anything, and I hadn't actually grown up in a religious family either, so I didn't know much about God. I kind of knew I believed in a God, but I didn't know much about God or anything like that. I didn't call out to God. I didn't pray. I didn't do any of that. I just was in fear. I was like frozen in fear, knowing that what this thing was doing to me was not good. And the next thing that happened was there was this blue light that formed in the room. And then I felt something like enter me. Now, this didn't feel scary. When this energy, this blue energy that I saw entered me, it was like all of a sudden I just snapped out of that fear. And I heard what I was saying, but I knew it wasn't, it was coming from me, but it wasn't. So the next thing that I said was, in God's name, you will leave. And this entity just disappeared as if it had never been there. So there was no, like fighting, there was no it disintegrating, it just disappeared. And everything went back to normal in the room, and it was like it had never been there. And then this God, this blue energy that had spoken through me, it was like that had never been there too. But then, like, I woke up as well, and I woke up and I could remember everything that had happened. And again, I had this sense of like, it was real. It wasn't fake. And I still knew what I felt in that moment, because when this God energy came into me, it definitely felt masculine and it felt fatherly. And instead of like a domineering, aggressive, violent, controlling masculine energy, like, the unhealthy expression of masculine energy, it just felt like courageous and strong, and it still felt loving, but in a different way, in like a tougher, harder way. And I just knew that it was real, and that was God, and God spoke through me. And the fear, just the way the fear just went away when that energy entered me, was something that I'll never forget. And so that was my meeting of God and the God energy. And so my next meeting was with the goddess, and this again was in a dream. So in this dream, we were about to be descended upon by darkness. So, darkness in my dream meant basically evil, negative entities and negative people, and it was about to basically take over the world. And I was inside, and I heard this voice say to me, "You can change this. You're a witch. You always have been, and you always will be. Don't you know that?" And when this voice said that to me, I remember the feeling of just being like relieved, because I was like trying to fight that that's what I was, because it's not as accepted by this society, and I thought I'm just maybe crazy for thinking that that's what I am. But this voice, it validated me, and it made me feel such relief. And the next thing that happened was I turned around, and then I ended up sort of outside. And in this dream, it was my front yard, but it was like a massive front yard, like a massive paddock that went on forever. And I could just see all this dark, just these dark figures just coming towards me. And there was a tree beside me. And I looked at the tree. The tree originally just had like green, normal leaves on it. And all of a sudden, these tree leaves turned to crystal, and then they started glowing pink, and the whole tree was filled with rose quartz crystals. And rose quartz crystals are a crystal that's used for love. And I just knew what I had to do in that moment. And I don't know where these people came from, but all of a sudden all these other people showed up. And we all connected hands and stood in a circle around this tree while it was glowing with these pink rose quartz crystals. And we just had the intention of love. And if you've ever watched someone talk about like a near-death experience where they just feel this overwhelming sense of love that they've never felt before, like you feel love in life, but it's like a magnified love. That's what I felt in this dream. It was just so much love, just such a strong magnified intention of love. And I knew as well that it was coming from us, but it was also coming from this tree. And this tree's energy felt like more of a feminine energy. So it was like a loving, nurturing, softer kind of energy to the God energy that I'd felt. Still equally as powerful, but just a different sort of energy. And when we were all having this intention of love and this tree was glowing, all of a sudden, again, these dark figures just disappeared, as if they'd never been there. So again, it was like they didn't disintegrate, we didn't fight them, they just disappeared as if they'd never been there. And so then I woke up from this dream, and that was my meeting of the goddess energy, and how I came to realize that to me, the goddess energy is Mother Nature, is the fact that, you know, it was through that tree that I met her. And now the other topic I want to talk about is like how that confused me a little bit, because then in my life, that was kind of a time when religion came into my life. So I was confused because they were equally strong experiences, and I without a doubt knew that a god and a goddess existed, that something higher than us existed. And, you know, religion had sort of come into my life because there was a friend of mine who was religious, so we went to like religious youth groups and all that sort of thing. So then it confused me as I got older, because I sensed this God energy, which is kind of seems like, you know, the God of the Bible that, you know, cast out demons and all that sort of stuff. But then I had this goddess energy that was telling me I was a witch. And then the Bible was saying, you know, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. And that was a very confusing time in my life, because I felt strongly that that's what I was, but I kept fighting it because I was like, well, that's sinful. Maybe I should just listen to the God energy and not that energy. But I just knew that they were equally as strong as each other. So that's when I sort of started to delve into the Bible a bit more, and even had conversations with God while reading the Bible, because I don't know if any of you have read the Old Testament Bible, but that God doesn't appear as a very nice guy. It was definitely not the energy that I felt that night. That God, you know, demands blood sacrifice and slaughters people and doesn't want people to be as powerful as him. And the God that I felt wanted me to be as powerful as him. You know, he was like lifting me up. He was not, you know, saying that I shouldn't call myself or be like a God or anything like that. But yeah, it's the God of this Old Testament. I didn't like him very much. So then I was talking to the God while I was reading that Bible, just being like, if this is you, I don't want anything to do with you. But the realization that I came to, because, you know, the God that appeared to me spoke to me and said, that's not me. That's not me. That's been warped. So the realization that I came to was that has either been warped by people who wanted, power over other people. And then Jesus came along, and Jesus was, he was talking about something very different. He was talking about loving everyone, no matter who they were, no matter if they were sinners. But then he also said that thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. So then I was like, I believed, this God of the Old Testament was like the false God, the fake God, the God that people have made up to control other people. And then Jesus came trying to show us who the real God was, which was the God that I met. And then I was like, but if he come to show this God, then why is he saying this? So the realization that I got to that was that, even Jesus's words have been warped in the Bible for greed and for power. So when you read it, he told me, use your discernment. What resonates with you? What doesn't? What do you believe? And, I just want to tell you all that your relationship with God could be very different to mine. It does even say in the Bible that everyone has their own unique relationship with God. So I don't believe the Bible or one religion is the only way, but it can be a helpful way. And, this God, he really helped me come to terms with that, and the fact that I didn't have to feel ashamed at who I was and calling myself a witch and and then I felt okay to work with this goddess energy as well, because I also got the feeling that they are one and the same. They're together. So the feminine and the masculine energy on this realm, on this earth, are separate, but the God and the goddess in the spiritual realm are together. So they're like parts of each other that complement each other. So that's how I met them. And then I also just want to talk to you, about sort of what I do as a witch as well. So what I do, number one, I talked about in the first video as well, is channeling. So I don't purposely channel things and channel information. It kind of just comes to me. It's like a knowing. And then I feel the need to express that to anyone who's watching and hope that that might help them with anything they're struggling. And I also wanted to do these videos because, I want to show people that I'm being my authentic self and who I am, and I don't care what anyone thinks. And I want people to be able to follow that path and be themselves no matter what as well. So so channeling for me is, it just comes to me. I don't always sort of know from what sources. I do use my discernment to be like, is this from a good source or a bad source, a negative energy or a positive energy? And I do listen to both, because as I said in my first video, you do learn from the darkness. Now, this doesn't mean to be caught up in it, but you can transform it and you can learn from it. So, not saying to do bad things or dark things, but, don't sort of discount your negative emotions and things like that. So I get it from different sources, and then I share it with you guys. So that's one of the gifts that I have as a witch. And then another one is, being able to feel energy. So empathy, being able to feel what other people feel. And a third one is the dreams. So I see things through dreams. And another one is manifestation. So basically what manifestation is, and this is sort of what, I can't speak for every witch, but what most witches do as well, is they're using an intention to make something happen in their life. So it's not that much different to prayer, really. In religions, people pray to their chosen God in order to make something happen in their life. And that's all that witches are really doing, but we use tools. And sometimes instead of relying on outside power, we rely on our own spiritual power. So, you know, can be something like needing a job. So we might have the intention that, you know, we want to bring a job into our life, and we might use certain things that represent a job, what type of job that might be. I don't think we can ever sort of know all the time how it's going to come into our life, because I do believe that, you know, that God, that higher energy, that collective consciousness outside of us, sort of knows that better, because it can see everything, whereas a lot of the time we can sort of only see sort of our lives and what's going to affect our lives, and we can't always see what's going to affect other people. So, you know, it might be things that other people want, and it might clash with that if it happens in a particular way. And I believe, you know, the universe, the collective consciousness can see that. So we can't always predict and control how it's going to come into our life, but we can sort of control what we want to come into our life. And as I said, it's just you using tools to do that. It's not much different to prayer. Now, as well, I just want to talk to you about the fact that if your subconscious wants something different to what you're trying to manifest, sometimes it's your subconscious that's going to manifest things. So you're going to think, oh, why isn't this thing that I want happening? And it might be because it's not what you really want. It might be what you think you should want. You know, there's things like that as well. But I'll talk about that a bit more in the next video, a bit more in depth about manifestation and manifesting things. So I think that's all the topics covered for this video. I'm sorry if I rambled on and kind of lost track of where I was. I've kind of described in my first video that happens to me, because I'm always sort of getting different messages and things to talk to you guys about. So thank you to anyone who was watching and listening. I hope this video helped you in some way, and I look forward to doing my next video. Thank you. Bye.